1-1 at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea can win the Champions League. Arsenal, definite favorites for the Premier League. This is Twin Football. Thank you very much for joining us. Today's episode, I want to dive into the 1-1 draw between Chelsea and Arsenal. But more importantly, I want to talk about why that game means Chelsea can win the Champions League and Arsenal should win the Premier League. So let's go ahead and dive straight into it. What a game we had on the weekend at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea brought the intensity from the first whistle, and a lot of people giving Caicedo a lot of slack for that red card in the 38th minute. Rightfully so, because he put his team in a bad position, in an uncomfortable position. Even though Chelsea have the most red cards, they account for almost 15 to 20% of the red cards in the Premier League this season are by Chelsea players. Caicedo, if for all you NBA fans, I attribute this game and the intensity of which he played this game with to the likes of a Draymond Green, where he plays intense on the front foot, trying to get into the opponent's space, make them uncomfortable. And that intensity is good for the team. It's good to push the team forward. One of your best players playing that hard, that intense, gets everybody going in the right direction together. And that's such a benefit to the entire team. And sometimes it goes over the edge. And that was a straight red card. There's no doubting it. You don't want that to boil over and result in a red card like it did. But I would not want him playing soft. I would not want him playing without intensity. It's terrible that now he's suspended. He's going to miss 3 games as Chelsea sits 6 points back of Arsenal, 1 point back of Manchester City in third spot in the Premier League. But I personally have no problem with the red card in terms of the way, he was pushing. And I think that was a big reason why Chelsea, even down to 10 men, were able to continue the intensity because of players like Caicedo, who started so on fire in the game. You had Cucurella as well, always pushing the envelope like he does. Those types of players who are considered one of the best in their positions in the world right now, pushing like that is going to bring everybody to the highest level. And so you have that great performance, and then you have some resilience by Arsenal. You have 11 men, and you're playing against a 10-man squad for almost 50 to 55 minutes. But you go down a goal off of a set piece, which can happen at any time during a game. If you have 7 men or 11 men, you can concede off of a set piece. They go down 1-0 away from home, and you battle back. I mean, this is an Arsenal team that in the span of 7 days played a North Derby, dismantled Spurs, dismantled Bayern Munich. You keep pushing in this game away from home, under the lights, a tough week, minus your key center back pair. You haven't had to deal with both of them being out for over 100 games. Arguably one of the best, if not the best, center back pairing in all of Europe. You don't have them. This is a top 3 Premier League battle, under the lights, down 1-0. You make some substitutions, you get back into the game, you get some opportunities even to win it late, and you come away with a point. And, all in all, I think a point was fair between both. It just highlighted the high quality in the Premier League. And when teams are playing on their day, the Premier League has some of the best teams in all of Europe. And that is exactly why, after watching that game, I think that Chelsea has a chance here to come home with the Champions League this season. I think Chelsea is more built for the Champions League than Arsenal is. Yes, the same Arsenal that finished semifinalist last year. I think Chelsea is more built for the Champions League, and Arsenal, through that game, confirmed to me that they are title favorites and should be title favorites. Start here with the Chelsea piece. You go back to when Enzo Maresca was hired in the summer of 2024. He had a very rocky preseason, even going down to Columbus to take on Manchester City. And you showed in that match that Chelsea and the squad just were not up to it. They just did not have the same level as Manchester City. And were really walked off the park. Trying to play out of the back was an issue in preseason, and it continued into parts of the season. But you go back to that, and since then, Chelsea have played 14 what I would say high profile, high important games. And so what I mean by that are home games, specifically home games here, where it was a knockout competition or a vital game against one of the other top 6 in the Premier League, maybe during an important time of the Premier League season, like a game against Manchester United at home, where we were pushing at the end of the season last year for a top 4 finish, something like that, as well as, your knockout competitions at home. I'm not counting things like Arsenal were up going into the second leg at home against PSV in the first round of the knockout stages of the Champions League last year. And that's not an important game. It's a Champions League home game, which is great, but you're up 6-1 on aggregate. That's not something to be concerned about. So I'm not counting that. And then any neutral site knockout games like finals, semifinals, that kind of stuff. So 14 high profile games for Chelsea, though it includes, all the games against the top 5, Spurs, United, Liverpool, City, Arsenal, from last season and this season. You include the Club World Cup knockout stage games, win or go home. A lot of buildup into those types of games. Club World Cup final against PSG. And you're going to have a bunch of people saying, well, it doesn't matter. That competition isn't important. Any person that watched that game leading up to that game knew that the players who were just in the United States for a month now in the heat battling wanted to win that game against a great PSG team that won 5 trophies calendar year. They didn't win one final, and that was against Chelsea. So that counts as a big game. 14 such games for Chelsea since Enzo Maresca took over. He started that off, those 14, with the first game of the Premier League season last year, a 2-0 loss to Manchester City. But that is the only loss that Enzo Maresca and Chelsea have in these 14 high-profile home/neutral site games with a lot of buildup going into them. 11-2-1 by the youngest team in the Premier League last year, a first-time Premier League, Champions League level manager in Enzo Maresca coming up from the Championship. And Reece James going into midfield, Cole Palmer playing up through the middle, playing on the right-hand side, changing tactics, changing formation, pressing high, Gusto being an inverted fullback when needed as well. All of these changes and tweaks are why Enzo Maresca can get this Chelsea team playing at the highest level against the highest level competition in the highest profile of games. And that is why Chelsea is not built to win the league, but they are built to win the Champions League. They are built to come home with a League Cup or an FA Cup this season. And as a Chelsea fan, I would be saddened and really disappointed and feel like the season is a failure if there isn't at least some level of silverware because of that. Yes, you want to finish in the top 5 and secure Champions League for next season, especially with the young core Premier League team that you have. But you need to be coming home with some silverware with the way that you can play in these high-profile games in the last year and some change here. Compare that to Arsenal, who also had 14 such games here in that time frame. You had PSG in the Champions League, both in the group stage as well as the semifinal of last year's Champions League. You have Newcastle in the semifinal of the League Cup leading up to that, a huge game with the final, a piece of silverware that Arteta has been missing over the last couple of years since his FA Cup in his inaugural season there. And then you have the games against Real Madrid, City, United, Chelsea, Spurs, always a huge game. Despite last year in the standings, those types of games, North London derbies are always massive leading into it. And you had games against Bayern this year. In 14 games, 9-3-2 for Arsenal. And the higher profile of game, semifinal in the League Cup against Newcastle, semifinal against PSG. that's when Arsenal got beat. That's when Arsenal had their worst performances. Yes, it's a high-profile game, but you can't tell me player for player, squad for squad, that Arsenal shouldn't be able to perform on that high of a level. And yes, the Champions League semifinal is bigger than the Club World Cup final, but it was against the same team within 2.5, 3 months of each other. And you were at home, Arsenal, and you lost to PSG. Didn't score. Chelsea were in a neutral field in the heat. Players coming in and out of the lineup during the transfer window to try to integrate. And Chelsea beat them 3-0. And it was all credited down to managerial masterclass from Maresca as well. And so the thing that struck me in this game, Arsenal-Chelsea over the weekend, it reminded me a lot of the Declan Rice quote a couple years ago when Arsenal was first trying to compete with City and Liverpool last year for the Premier League title. And that was John Stones and Declan Rice were out on international duty in March of 2024. And Declan Rice turns to John Stones and says, "Big game this weekend." And John Stones said, "Oh, yeah? Who do you play?" It was Arsenal City for a top of the Premier League clash in late spring as they pushed for the Premier League title against each other. And John Stones had no care in the world about who he was playing because the Pep Guardiola system is a league benefit system. It's a way to win the league. It is a focus on your day in, day out way of playing, sticking to the way that you play, not adapting to anything else. And that way of playing, possession-based, is going to get you enough points through a 38-game season to win the league and to be dominant in the league, to be centurions in the league. But what is the one thing that Pep Guardiola has always been kind of, nagged for over the years? Not being able to win the Champions League. The year they won the treble, in that calendar year, City had 16 of these high-profile home games, big spots. They went 16 for 16. That is how important those big spot games are in terms of actually getting over the line for silverware. They were able to do it that calendar year. But in his beginning tenure, losses to Spurs, losses to Liverpool, losses to Monaco in the Champions League, big profile spots, knockout stage football, not able to adapt or adjust, criticism for not playing a CM against Chelsea in Porto in 2021 as clearly the favorites and the better team against a new manager who's only been in the team for a couple of months in Thomas Tuchel, taking over for a mid-table Chelsea team, trying to get them up into a Champions League spot that they only got on the last day of season due to Spurs winning a game, funny enough. And they dominated City in that game because of the managerial changes that Tuchel was able to do to the squad to make them ready to go in a high-profile, high knockout stage, high important game like the Champions League final. And that, I think, is the issue that Arsenal is going to run into in this Champions League. Yes, they are top. Yes, they are undefeated. Yes, they look like the favorites in terms of they just dominated Bayern at home. But there's a reason why after that game, you have Bayern players saying that other teams they've played this season are tougher. That company comes out and says, we want another crack at them. There's a competitive spirit on one side, but it's also, okay, we understand how they're playing and we think we can beat them. And we want that opportunity to go beat them. And I think when Arsenal has had injuries over the last couple of years under Arteta, it's been similar to the injuries that Pep sustained over the last couple of years himself, and not being able to fully adjust quick enough to be able to combat that and get over the line when the lights are the brightest. But the lights aren't the brightest on a Tuesday night at Sunderland. Maybe that game a couple weeks ago was a classic and every, primetime type of game. Getting points, a 1-1 draw at Stamford Bridge in the season, no matter how you do it, no matter when that game is a good result in trying to win a league title. Getting a draw and a win away to teams like Liverpool, to Manchester United, playing well against Manchester City, those are ways to get you enough points to win a Premier League title. And that is why Arsenal, to me, will win the Premier League title. They have the resilience. They have the system to go 38 games, fill in when injuries are needed, pick up points, not drop too many. But they don't have what it takes to win the Champions League yet. I just don't see it. And I believe wholeheartedly that is an Arteta problem, not a squad problem, but an Arteta problem. And if you win the Premier League this year, you're going to keep Arteta. You're going to push and you're going to push and you're going to push for European silverware. And I don't think you're going to get it. I don't think he is capable of getting it. He is not on Pep's level. And I don't think that Arsenal are going to get the level caliber of player that Pep was able to get and create. And I don't think Pep gets enough credit for that. I think he's able to raise everyone's levels, fit them in. Once he's chosen you for his system, he's able to fit you in and elevate the way that you play. And I don't see that in Arteta. I think Arteta needs high-quality players from the jump. I don't necessarily see huge improvements from players that are going club to club and ending up at Arsenal that are outside of the regular growth. Or, Declan Rice has become the best midfielders in the world, but people were seeing that at West Ham. He has pushed himself through from even the academy level against adversity to become one of the best center mids in all of world football. And I don't necessarily account that for Arteta. But look at Jesus going from City. You look at Zinchenko going from City. You look at Havertz. You look at Jorginho. I would say a lot of those players had better success elsewhere. And they were young, and then to the prime of their career, they were in the prime of their career, to the end of their career, no matter what, they got worse at Arsenal. And so, for me, Arsenal favorites to win the Premier League. Chelsea have a chance and have it in them to win the Champions League. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. We got festive fixtures here starting today in the Premier League through the weekend. But always remember, enjoy the football.